The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello, everyone.
So, Phil, I suppose you're wondering why I called everyone here today.
I think I know why. I think I know why we're here.
Yeah. And that is, we lost not one, but two Oscar-winning actors in the past few days. One pretty much none of you know, and the other one everybody knows. But we're going to talk about both of them. So that's what I got. Phil, what do you got?
Well, you told me about the second one, and I know very little about this gentleman. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, man. You know, I think what's really strange for me is, and I'm going to get like really macro and annoying here for a split second. But
Just for a split second, folks.
Well, I'm hoping to bring it back to like something large. I get that people die every day. Yeah. And I also get that actors are just people, and that celebrities are not actually more important than other people. And I understand all that. I also understand that we're a movie podcast, so we're supposed to talk about actors and we're supposed to have an opinion about this stuff. There is something really interesting to me about how an actor who is particularly gifted and special can make people feel something of affection and admiration and love for them, even if you've never met them. Yep. And it's not just, oh, they're so amazing or so cool or so good looking. It's that there is a deep sense that even if we don't know the person, we feel connected to them in some way. And in that sense, a wonderful actor, musician, storyteller can actually become important to a large number of people.
Yeah.
And so even if I've never met Philip Seymour Hoffman, I feel a profound sense of loss over the fact that he is dead. And I don't pretend that it is more important than other people dying. It's not more important to God, in my opinion, and it's not more important or somehow more huge in this world than the two homeless people that froze to death last week or last month in my city. And yet our lives are enriched by the stories that this guy was a part of, and he brought something to the table that we all recognized and were really excited about and happy to be witnessing, and to see that die so early. Not to mention the fact that he's a guy with children. I don't know, the whole thing just like, it's really bothered me and bothered you. You and I were talking about it, and I've had people like, email me or text me and be like, this is bothering me more than it should.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that I've heard from a lot of people. Like, I didn't know this was going to bother me so much, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a number of ways in which this could bother you. Even leaving aside all the stupid reasons it could bother you, which were, as you pointed out, celebrities are more than people and blah, blah, blah. Leaving all that aside, there's still several ways. One, This is clearly, with all due respect to Mr. Hoffman, this is not the story of a hunk who broke into Hollywood based on his looks, right? This is a guy who came up through theater, who came up through bit parts in movies, was quote-unquote a character actor, which in his case apparently is what Hollywood means when they say not really, 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 really attractive.
Right, not ridiculously good looking.
Right, really, really, really ridiculously good looking. But every step of the ladder he climbed due to his talent. And yet, I mean, think about State and Maine. He was the romantic lead in that movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And it wasn't like a goof. It wasn't like a spoof. Oh, look at this jerk that we got to, that would never be. He was just the romantic lead. But another way is, addiction is sad. It is just the worst, and And although he got what was coming to him, if you read internet comment sections, which you're right, you never should.
I believe you, but I don't know.
Don't know. Just take my word for it.
No worries.
But not only that, he had, to whatever extent an addict ever can, he had kicked it. He kicked it for 20 years.
Yeah. And
then he had a relapse last year and went to rehab and seemed to have begun the process of kicking it again. Yeah. And so it's sad on that level. And it's sad, as you say, I didn't realize how young he was. Yeah. He was 46, 47?
46, yeah.
That is, come on. To say nothing of the fact that, you know, I can see it. I can see that age in the distance myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Terrifying.
Right? And look, babies die. So the number is not, to say someone's young, okay.
But there's a point at which, no, it's like, what's the name of the other guy that died this week?
The other actor is Maximilian Schell, who is an Oscar winner.
And how old was he?
90-something? That's
my point. Yes. Like, you know what? Yeah. When someone dies at 90-something, you're like...
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. I mean, 83. But...
Fine, but well
your
done.
Your point remains
right.
the same.
Well done, good and faithful servant. Like, you did your thing for 83 years. Someone goes... When you die at 83, no one has a right to go, what happened?
That's right. It's also, yes. Agreed. If I can detour into Maximilian Schell for just a minute or two, this guy won an Oscar for his role in he won Best Actor for Judgment at Nuremberg, which is one of the finest courtroom movies ever. He's so good. He's so good in it. Sadly, most people watching this podcast, and this isn't a comment on you or your movie watching, it's a comment on just when you happen to be born, you probably know him as Téa Leoni's dad in the asteroid movie Deep Impact. Yep. But you might know him as what is his name? What's his name? As Larry London in The Freshman.
Wow.
The man with the ferret? The ferret and B.D. Wong as his assistant? Yes.
Yep.
The man with the ferret who made the exotic meals. Yes. There was supposed to be one boy. There are two. Yes. This is a guy who is a character actor who also happened to be like one of the 15 best looking people ever. Like you look at this guy as a young man.
I was just looking at pictures of him and he was gorgeous at 80.
That's right. That's right.
He was better looking than me at 80 than I am now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's depressing.
Yes. If he at the age of 19, if he looked like he looked at 80, he'd be the most attractive 19-year-old on the planet. Right?
Not fair. It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. Et tu, God, really? So yeah. But he was in a movie that has, it always seems to stay around spot 15 on my Netflix queue, because I keep saying, I gotta put that up at the top. I gotta put that up at the top. There's this movie called, I think it is pronounced Topkapi, Topkapi, right? Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
It's supposed to be, it's like a precursor to The Italian Job, the original with Michael Caine, like that sort of it's like a heist caper comedy film. It's got he's in it. Peter Ustinov is in it. It's just an amazing cast, and it's supposed to be just a whole lot of fun. And I think unfortunately it took Maximilian Schell's death to put it there, but I think it's going to make its way up the queue.
Maybe that's the purpose for his death, was so you could finally watch the movie, Andy.
Well, gosh, that makes total sense to me and totally aligns with my worldview.
Andy, the Lord works in mysterious ways. His wonders to behold. I gotta say, you never know, because it doesn't look. Again, I don't 83. Awesome.
Yes.
You know,
he played.
I had a woman at my church who died last year at 91.
Mm-hmm.
This was a phenomenal woman.
Yep.
Like the kind of person we all want not only to be, actually, she got to that level of person, and I'm not kidding, where it's not even like I want to be that person. It's like I'm never going to be someone like that. I'm just glad to know. Do you know those people?
Yes.
There's the people that you want to be like, and then there's the people you were like, whatever, call it a day. I would just love, like, first of all, I don't want to be like Bob Dylan, especially the more you read about his life. I don't even want to know him. I'm just glad he exists.
Right. Glad he's out there. Somebody fill in that role.
I don't want to be Sinatra. Would have been cool to have known that dude. And everyone who knew him was just sort of like, whatever. Like, Dino was the guy who said, it's Frank's world, we all just live in it. And and he was like, and I'm glad I get to live in it. It's pretty fantastic.
Right.
This woman was one of those people where it was like, just glad to know that she exists.
Yep.
And then she died, and I had people who were like, oh, what happened? And I was like, I mean, she was 91. Like, guys, we need to stop. And it shocks me. Like, do you remember when we were growing up, people just died of natural causes? No one's allowed to die of natural causes anymore. Like, everyone has to know why, and it has to be a reason. And it's like, we can't be comfortable with it. And with her, it was like, and so Maximilian Schell, like, hey, man, 83. Well done. Good job.
Yes.
You made it. There is something so, and I don't know about you, as unsettling as it was to find out that Philip Seymour Hoffman died, as it was, and all the more unsettling to realize very quickly that it was a drug-related death.
Yep.
Because he wasn't a party animal.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing, is it wasn't like, this was not Chris Farley or John Belushi.
Right.
On top of all that, to find out the detail that the needle was in his arm.
Has that been confirmed? I mean, I've read that. It was
in the very first report, so it's one of those things where whether or not it's true,
you can't get that out of your head.
It became the image that I was given within moments.
Right.
And I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, and he has these children, and he was living in a separate apartment for the last couple of weeks or whatever, and you're just like, every single thing you find out about this makes it worse.
Yes.
And not worse, but here's what's interesting for me. Not worse in a sordid way. Like, you and I have been talking on our Facebook page, and the world has been talking about this Woody Allen situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise this relates. Go ahead. No matter what you end up thinking, everything that's getting brought up on every side of it makes you feel worse about the world.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that's coming out that's making anybody feel okay about anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh, and then like, it reminds you, like, even if this person is wrong, then the other person still doesn't make you feel good about anything.
Yes.
And the reason is, like, this is different, the same but different. Everything that gets brought up, it doesn't make me think less of Philip Seymour Hoffman. It makes me sadder that he's gone.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, that's just, none of it makes me respect him less. It makes me sadder.
Yes.
And the similar thing happened with James Gandolfini recently.
Yeah.
The more you learned about him, because he kept it all. It was all very sort of, he wasn't into the zeitgeist. How do you say that word? Zeitgeist, right? Mm-hmm. There's no tabloid covers of Philip Seymour Hoffman and James Gandolfini.
Right.
And so then when you find out what kind of a person the people around Gandolfini and Philip Seymour Hoffman said they were, like, the people around them were just like, oh, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, like, this person was the heart of so many things.
Yeah.
That's all. You know.
So I wanna wrap up by being as happy as I can, considering we're talking about two dead people. But and the way I want to do it is by celebrating their work.
Oh yeah.
So very 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 briefly to put Maximilian Schell to bed in the Good Night Sweet Prince way. See what I did there? It's a death pun. It's a Shakespearean death pun.
Good job.
Phil will be auditioning new co-hosts.
No, you're doing a great job. I wouldn't think of it.
So So he was also in a Disney movie, maybe like the freakiest Disney movie ever made, The Black Hole, a science fiction movie.
That's a freaky Disney movie.
Did you see it? Did you watch it from the early 80s? And freaky. He's in it. And also he played Anne Frank's dad in the acclaimed TV movie version of Diary of Anne Frank, where what's her name from Little House on the Prairie? Melissa Gilbert was Anne Frank. He was Otto Frank. And he was just, and you know what, ending the discussion of Maximilian Schell close to where I began it. If you felt something at all good or poignant or heartwarming or heartrending during the movie Deep Impact, chances are it was because of him and his discussions with Téa Leoni. Because he was good in it, because he was good in everything.
Right.
Also, see Judgment at Nuremberg. On to Philip Seymour Hoffman.
PSH.
This man, what was the first... Do you remember the first time you saw him? The first role you saw him in?
I know he played a scumbag. It was early. I mean, I remember him... Lebowski and Boogie Nights, but I saw him before that, and I'm trying to remember what he was in that I saw him before that. And I haven't...
So I don't remember... The first movie that I saw that he was in was Leap of Faith. That Steve Martin movie. I confess I don't remember him from that movie.
That was on recently, and I taped it.
Nice.
And I remember him being in it, and I was like, oh, man. So that was probably the first movie I saw him in without knowing it.
Okay.
Nobody's Fool.
The first one for me, Scent of a Woman. He's the jerk. He's the jerk rich kid.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
Right?
Yes.
With his Stad and Gustad and...
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And
then I remember, I think really the first time I would say, when I'm looking at his list now, I'd probably say Nobody's Fool was the first time where he was someone in it where I recognized him as somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then Boogie Nights, and then Big Lebowski, and then Happiness. I mean, Happiness.
He was the only, not the only enjoyable, but one of the most enjoyable parts of Twister. Because he was just so into it. He was just so into, woo, tornadoes. Boogie Nights, there is this is not safe for this podcast, okay? But there is a clip where he tries to, where he, and this really isn't spoiling it, because it's clear from the first moment you see this character where this arc is going. He tries to kiss Mark Wahlberg's character, and he is rebuffed as gently as Wahlberg's character can. He is not a jerk to him. And they're outside a party, and he goes, and Wahlberg's character goes in, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character sits in his car and calls himself an effing idiot over and over again, and I'm gonna start crying because it is. I have seen this clip attached to articles over the past week saying the moment that Philip Seymour Hoffman became a star, and I can't really dispute that because it is. It's a powerhouse scene. It's a powerhouse acted. Acted scene.
And you remind me. I mean, I think Philip, he will be associated with Paul Thomas Anderson for a long time.
Yes.
And I think what I want to say about that I find really, really interesting. At least I find it interesting. Is I have a similar. I think Paul Thomas Anderson has a similar. I don't know if it's a problem or not. It may just be what his choice. But he reminds me of. He's reminiscent of Kubrick to me. Okay. In the sense that both of them will champion mastery of certain things over that both of them are capable of deep sterility in their filmmaking.
Well said.
And I think they mean to be. I don't think it's a fault of theirs.
Right.
But it does sometimes pull me away from falling in love with their work. And one thing when we were watching, we talked about The Shining a couple months back, and if you haven't seen our Shining episode, watch it. It's fantastic. We're amazing. I realized in watching The Shining, one of the reasons that may be my favorite Kubrick movie is Jack Nicholson, and the idea of pairing someone who is so emotionally in tune with such a sterile filmmaker created something very special. Like, I think they both drew something out of each other that when I watch that, it's like, here's the best of both of them, in my mind, to me. Because you see where I'm going with this.
I do.
I think that when you watch Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Thomas Anderson's work, he is a person who was able to recognize, and maybe the reality is that, and I don't know, maybe the reality is he's the one who could recognize the heart in Kubrick's work. He's the one that could find, he's the one who could speak Mamet's dialogue.
Right.
He's the one who could, and so he's the one for Paul Thomas Anderson who could look at this and recognize the utter heart that is at the core of what is such an intellectual work.
I'm gonna say something that I hope I don't regret later, because I haven't seen even close to all of Hoffman's signature roles, let alone all of his movies. No, we're not going to do Hoffway, Project Hoffway. We're not going to. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst decision ever.
Thinking about it, I've been thinking about it all week.
I understand.
I may be doing it all on my own, but we're not going to do it as a podcast. I agree.
Godspeed. He is, as you say, when I said, what was the first movie you saw him in, you said, I don't know, but he played a creep. He has played action movie villains, one of the most interesting action movie villains I can remember in Mission Impossible 3. He has played the romantic lead. He has played a whole, I think the actual term, like the actual unit of measurement, is a buttload of creeps.
That's right. That's correct.
I cannot remember a character of his that in some way, at least as much as the size of the role allowed me to, I didn't love. As a person, even his creeps, let me explain why. In Scent of a Woman, he is despicable. But you never question for a second that Chris O'Donnell's character wants and needs his approval.
Yep.
Or why he would.
Yep.
In 25th Hour, which is the great Spike Lee movie that nobody ever talks about, he's presented as a basically nice guy, and then there's like this weird dark secret that kind of comes out of nowhere, but it doesn't feel tacked on because it's him, and because it's well written and directed as well. But you don't love the character less. And then you have things. Even Punch Drunk Love. I just love that scene.
I've already gone on record. As saying that's like my secret favorite performance of his.
Yes.
The movie is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and it works as what it is because of every single person cast in it. But it would not work if you did not hate the Mattress Man. The way you hate the Mattress Man, and it only works because of him. I mean, it's so. Oh my God! Oh my gosh! It's just amazing.
The last two movies I want to talk about, first is Synecdoche, New York. Not Schenectady. That's a pun. It's a pun in the title. Synecdoche, New York.
Haven't seen it.
Roger Ebert called it the best movie of the decade, 2000 to 2009. I'm not sure I can disagree with that. I've only seen it once, and I can't. It's never left me. Okay. And yet it's a movie that I don't think I could own because it would totally ruin me if I watched it more than once or twice more in my life.
Charlie Kaufman. Is that
Yes.
Charlie Kaufman?
Yes,
and
writing and directing.
Direct?
Yes. No. Charlie Kaufman directed. It was his directorial debut, I think. It is not. It might be pretentious to say this, but it is not inaccurate to say that the movie is about all of human experience, in the way that only Charlie Kaufman can write. And so Philip Seymour Hoffman has to do the heavy lifting of kind of being every person who has ever lived on the planet ever. And he does it. And the story spans his life. And without, I don't want to spoil anything, but it very early on, you see how it's going to end. And it is a truly beautiful movie. And it is a beautiful movie because everything works. It's a perfect movie. But he is... he's in almost every scene. I think he is in almost every scene. I feel like he might be. If he's not in every frame, and he isn't, but if he's not in every... It feels like he's in every frame. That is the kind of performance. I haven't actually seen Capote. I haven't seen what he won his Oscar for. It is a shame that he didn't win for Synecdoche, New York. It's that good. And the second of the two movies that I want to mention is a movie that I confess I didn't love, although I liked it a lot. Another one of his collaborations with Paul Thomas Anderson, the movie Magnolia, where he plays someone who is so good, he's basically a saint. And there's a scene where he says, he is on the phone and he has lines about how he's like, this is the scene in the movie where the guy calls and asks for help. And this is the scene in the movie where you help me.
Right.
And it breaks your heart. The monologue, it's a soliloquy because he's talking to a phone.
Yeah.
The monologue breaks your heart because he's so good. And I will miss...
I haven't seen that movie since I saw it. I think I saw it in
Yeah.
the theaters, and it was like one of my favorite movies ever, and I don't think I've seen it since.
Sure.
I remember reading that Paul Thomas Anderson wrote that character for Philip Seymour Hoffman based on Philip Seymour Hoffman's actual personality.
Which
makes you want to die a little bit.
Yeah, which tells you a lot.
I want to mention a couple things. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Lebowski.
Sure.
Because he's adorable in Lebowski. In the kind of way where if you knew that person in real life, you would want to punch them in the nose.
Sure.
I want to mention a movie that I saw when it was in the theaters that his brother wrote, and it's called Love, Liza.
Which I have never seen.
And it's a story about Seymour Hoffman playing an addict, but he's addicted to huffing paint, or huffing gas.
Okay.
But it's addiction and depression, and it's his scenario, and it's a really haunting, beautiful, fantastic movie. And I already talked about Punch Drunk Love. I think the thing I want to say that I love, when you were talking about him being able to play whatever kind of character, I think what I want to say is that there are people who you could say are miscast, and what I want to say is it's possible that there's such a thing as miscasting people, but then there's people like Philip Seymour Hoffman that make you feel like, nope, there are just actors who aren't good at certain things.
Yeah.
And that Philip Seymour Hoffman makes you feel like Hoffman was a guy that you feel like it would cast him as Abraham freaking Lincoln. Like, who could he not have played?
Or as Mary Todd Lincoln.
Right.
Yes.
That really he worked. He's so good that he was never miscast. That he just could have been anything. And the last thing I want to say is, Andy, I don't know if you remember this, but a year ago we were asked by someone in one of our mailbags to say if we could only watch the movies of one actor for the rest of going forward in our life, and it was someone 45 and under.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I chose Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
But I might have chosen Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
And I remember saying it's between these two, and it's like pick one.
Right.
And you picked Matthew McConaughey, and I was like, "What are you, high?" And then this year happened, and all I have to say is, one of us backed the wrong horse.
No, disagree.
No, I know.
Because there's home video, my friend.
I know, and I do want to watch every single movie that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Rewatch some of them, and
Even Along Came Polly.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll watch that again.
Nice.
Listen. I need to watch some brainless nonsense from time to time.
Hey, fair point.
Just him introducing sharding into the world lingo, which even if it existed before him, he's the one who gave it to so many of us. I don't feel guilty about that, and you shouldn't either. Like, no, I'm not too dignified. I'm not too dignified for that. That's glorious.
I am genuinely happy that it makes you happy. I'm genuinely happy to make
because
you
that's
happy.
the reality that he could find that character.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The thing about it, right?
That's right.
Like, he gets how that's a person.
Yes.
So, anyways,
yes.
To Philip Seymour Hoffman, I pray that you have peace. To your family, we pray for your peace, and I hope that there's a way forward for them. And I'm grateful for the movies that he's left behind, and I'm grateful for the legacy that he left. I mean, it is not an incomplete legacy by any stretch of the imagination.
It's funny that you say that, because I look at Maximilian Schell and I say, I have an entire life of this man's work that I could watch, and yet of course I feel that. I feel what you just said about Maximilian Schell, because it's not an incomplete legacy, and with Philip Seymour Hoffman, although much like I said when we talked about Roger Ebert, I feel cheated out of all the reviews of Ebert's I'll never get to read. I feel cheated out of all the roles that I didn't get to see Hoffman make his own. Even though that's true, I agree with you. It's not an incomplete legacy by any means. He is truly, and people sometimes shy away from this because it's more comfortable to say this about people who existed before your time, but he is truly one of the greatest actors in Hollywood history, and every moment committed to celluloid with him on it is a gift to everyone who loves movies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Rest in peace, both of you. And,
yes.
And thanks.
Yes.
Well, that was a downer. Whew. God. We'll be happier next time, folks.
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly. But for now, we are Second Breakfast Podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. See you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.